all of you for joining us today. Admiral Searing, I especially appreciated your willingness to visit with me the other day on some of these issues. The recent aggressive behavior of North Korea and the continued belligerence of Iran's pursuit of a nuclear weapons program tend to show the need for an effective and robust missile defense system is as great as it ever has been before. In light of our country's fiscal situation, we have to ensure that all missile defense programs are both cost-effective and likely to be able to achieve their objectives. We must also base these decisions, any decisions pertaining to U.S. missile defense, solely, exclusively on the need of the United States to defend the nation against ballistic missile attacks. It's no secret that the Russian government continues to demand concessions and assurances on our missile defense programs. Admiral Searing, I was a little alarmed yesterday to hear you suggest that this administration had perhaps discussed or considered declassifying information on our missile defense program in order to ease concerns of the Russian government. It's also been reported in recent weeks that Under Secretary of Defense for Policy James Miller held consultations with Russian Deputy Defense Minister Anatoly Anatov in Brussels concerning U.S. missile defense. Russian media reported that National Security Advisor Tom Donilon had delivered a message from President Obama to President Putin in April that included proposals on missile defense. This follows reports in March that Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu asked Secretary Hagel for regular talks on missile defense with the United States. On this topic, I asked Secretary Hagel in the Department of Defense posture hearing just a few weeks ago if these talks with the Russian government would be taking place and who would be involved. I'm still waiting for a response from Secretary Hagel on that important question. But why don't we start with you, Admiral Searing, following up on Senator Udall's question a minute ago. I'd like to discuss what it was that you did say yesterday in the House Armed Services Strategic Forces Subcommittee regarding the declassification of missile defense data. Specifically, what's the nature of the data that is being considered, at least, for possible declassification, and what can you tell me about the purposes for which this might be up for consideration for declassification?
Yes, sir. The questions that I get asked as the classification authority across the stakeholder spectrum of the BMDS people that care about and work with the ballistic missile defense system and the Missile Defense Agency in particular come to me every day in terms of classification authority. And my staff and the agency and eventually to me are asked consistently, is a piece of information classified or not, and we rule on that. I have been asked many times since I've been the director to rule on a piece of information in a briefing or a slide. And I have been asked by OSD policy on one occasion to rule on a piece of information, missile parameter information, of which I said the information is classified and it will remain classified. I'll turn over to Secretary Creedon for further discussion on the policy issues and discussions that Dr. Miller has had. I want to just finish by saying I did talk to Dr. Miller last night, sir, and he offered to come over and talk to any senator or any committee member on his specific policy discussions in this area, and just wanted me to tell you that directly, sir.
Okay, okay. And we'll turn to Secretary Creedon in a minute. So just so I understand you, if I'm understanding you correctly, you seem to be telling me that we do have a significant national security interest in maintaining the classified status of this data.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And I'm not anxious and will not cede the advantage of the United States to anybody.
Okay, okay, thank you. Secretary Creedon, you want to follow up on that? Anything to add to that?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to reemphasize that we have no ability to share any classified information with Russia, nor any intent to share any classified information with Russia. But as Admiral Searing said, in the preparations for some of these meetings that you referenced, we wanted to be very clear and very careful about what were the sorts of things that we would begin conversations on missile defense with the Russians, because we want to be very clear that we were not getting into any areas that were classified. So we've had multiple discussions about, is this classified, is this classified, is this thing classified, to make sure that we're very clear on where we stand.
Okay. Now, can you confirm that Mr. Donilon, in fact, delivered a message to President Putin regarding missile defense?
Mr. Donilon had a range of meetings when he was in Moscow, including with with President Putin. What he was talking about was expanding and making sure that we have a good relationship with Russia. One of the issues that obviously we all know has been a burr, frankly, in the relationship is missile defense. And so we were looking at ways to reinvigorate some of the discussions with respect to missile defense, because we really haven't had anything of substance in about a year and a half, because it is in the way of talking about other things as well, trade, I mean, all sorts of things in the broader relationship.
So I understand you perhaps wanted to reinitiate some sort of dialogue. Can you tell me anything about the substance of any such communications? My understanding, because I wasn't there, but my understanding of that, as well as the subsequent meeting with the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy with Mr. Antonov, the Deputy Secretary of the Minister of Defense, was that a lot of this really was both explaining the decisions that we had made with respect to the hedge, the implementation of the additional 14 GBIs, as well as the decisions with respect to the European phased adaptive approach, and then also put on the table some things that had been put on the table before, frankly, that could ultimately lead to discussions with respect to both transparency and cooperation with the Russians on missile defense. But we were also very clear, and I just really want to reemphasize this, that we are not, will not, cannot agree to anything that restricts either the performance or the geographic locations of our systems. Or that would involve handing over classified information?
Or that would involve handing over classified information.
That Admiral Searing has no intent, desire, willingness to declassify.
And as I said, we have no mechanism to provide them classified information in any event.
Okay. Thank you. I see my time's expired. I thank the Chairman, and thank you, Senator Fisher.